Mindset determines destiny because every action you take, every decision you make, and every opportunity you pursue is filtered through the lens of how you think. When your mindset is small, your choices shrink to match it. When your mindset expands, your world expands with it. Your thoughts set the limits for what you're willing to attempt, and those limits quietly shape the direction of your entire life. Your beliefs act like invisible architects, constructing the boundaries of your potential long before you ever take your first step. If you believe you're capable of growth, your brain begins searching for ways to make that belief true. If you believe you're stuck, your mind shuts down possibilities before they ever reach your awareness. This is why two people can face the same challenge, yet one sees an obstacle and the other sees opportunity. The difference isn't talent or luck, it's mindset. The destiny you move toward is influenced by what you think you deserve. If you carry a mindset of inadequacy, you subconsciously choose paths that keep you small. But when you adopt a mindset of worthiness, you open the door to environments that challenge you, elevate you, and stretch you into the person you can become. Everything begins internally long before it manifests externally, and your destiny follows your internal identity. Your mindset determines how you interpret setbacks. A fixed mindset sees failure as confirmation of limitation, while a growth mindset sees it as temporary feedback and a chance to adapt. The person who grows is not the one who avoids failure, but the one who interprets it correctly. And the way you interpret failure becomes the compass that guides the rest of your journey, influencing how fast you rebound and how boldly you continue. Every day, your mindset influences the standards you set for yourself. Someone with a weak mindset tolerates procrastination, excuses, and inconsistency because their standards are negotiable. Someone with a powerful mindset holds themselves to a higher level because they understand their future is shaped by the habits they reinforce. The gap between who you are and who you want to become is bridged by the mindset that refuses to settle. Mindset impacts the company you keep because your thoughts determine who feels comfortable around you. When you think at a high level, low energy conversations and negative environments become incompatible with your direction. You naturally seek out people who challenge your thinking, expand your beliefs, and elevate your standards, and the people you surround yourself with quietly influence the trajectory of your destiny. Your mindset determines how you handle fear. Fear never disappears, but people with strong mindsets interpret it differently. Instead of seeing fear as a stop sign, they see it as a signal that growth is near. Instead of avoiding discomfort, they walk toward it because they understand that everything they want lies on the other side. And as they develop the courage to keep moving, their life expands in ways they once believed impossible. Even your level of persistence is a product of mindset. A person with a limited mindset gives up the moment progress slows because they assume difficulty is a sign to quit. A person with a strong mindset understands that consistency compounds and that small steps eventually produce massive outcomes. Their ability to persevere comes from the internal conviction that their future is worth fighting for. Mindset shapes the opportunities you recognize in the world around you. Two people can look at the same situation and see completely different realities because one is trained to see obstacles while the other is trained to see potential. When your mindset is aligned with growth, you begin noticing doors that others overlook. You become aware of possibilities that were always there but invisible to you until your mind expanded enough to see them. Ultimately, your mindset determines your destiny because it influences your thoughts, which influence your actions, which influence your results. The future you walk into is not determined by luck or circumstance, but by the internal narrative you choose to believe and reinforce every single day. Responsibility creates power, because the moment you decide that your life is your responsibility, you reclaim authority over your outcomes. When you stop waiting for someone to rescue you, fix you, validate you, or motivate you, you step into a level of strength that can't be taken away. Responsibility shifts you from being a passenger in your life to becoming the driver, and that shift alone changes everything about the direction you move in. Taking responsibility forces you to stop hiding behind excuses. Excuses feel comforting in the moment, but they quietly rob you of progress by convincing you that the problem is always outside of you. When you eliminate excuses, you eliminate the illusion that something else is controlling your potential. You begin to see that the only thing standing between you and the life you want is the decision to act with intention instead of justification. When you embrace responsibility, you stop viewing challenges as unfair burdens and start viewing them as opportunities to grow. You recognize that every obstacle contains a lesson, every difficulty reveals a skill you need to develop, and every setback prepares you for a greater level of strength. This mindset gives you unshakable advantage because instead of resisting your challenges, you begin to leverage them. Responsibility also strengthens your identity. The more you take ownership of your actions, the more confident you become in your ability to influence your future. Each time you make a decision based on accountability rather than emotion, you reinforce a version of yourself that is capable, reliable, and disciplined. Over time, this builds a sense of inner authority that becomes a powerful guiding force. When you take responsibility, you stop comparing your journey to others. Comparison thrives when you feel powerless. But when you know you control your growth, you no longer measure your life based on someone else's achievements. Instead, you measure it based on your progress, your standards, and your commitment. This shift frees you from insecurity and allows you to operate from clarity rather than envy. Responsibility changes the way you respond to failure. Instead of blaming circumstances or people, you look inward and ask what you could have done differently. This perspective empowers you because it means that you always have the ability to adjust, refine, and elevate. Failure loses its power to define you because you treat it as feedback rather than a final verdict. You grow stronger after every setback because you take ownership of the lesson embedded within it. Taking responsibility increases your discipline. When you know that no one is coming to save you, you become more intentional with your habits, your environment, and your decisions. You stop waiting for motivation and start relying on structure. You stop hoping for a better future and start building one. Discipline becomes a natural byproduct of understanding that your destiny is shaped by what you repeatedly choose. Responsibility also transforms your relationships. When you own your actions, communica. Sion becomes clearer, trust becomes stronger, and conflict becomes easier to resolve. You stop expecting people to fill gaps you haven't filled within yourself. Instead, you bring wholeness, accountability, and emotional maturity into your connections, which elevates the quality of the people you attract and keep in your life. Embracing responsibility enhances your ability to recognize and seize opportunities. When you're accountable for your progress, you stay alert, prepared, and proactive. You don't wait for the perfect moment. You create momentum by acting on what you have. Opportunities don't pass you by because your mindset is trained to take initiative instead of hoping for luck or convenience. Ultimately, responsibility creates power because it gives you control over your direction, your growth, and your future. It frees you from dependency, excuses, and limitations by reminding you that you are both the architect and the builder of your destiny. Vision must be clear and non-negotiable because a vague future cannot inspire decisive action. When you know exactly where you're going, your mind begins filtering the world through a lens of purpose instead of confusion. A clear vision acts like a compass, guiding you through uncertainty and giving direction to every step you take. Without it, you drift. With it, you move with intention and confidence towards something meaningful. A non-negotiable vision eliminates the hesitation that comes from doubt. When you are unsure about what you want, every obstacle feels like a reason to quit. But when your vision is firm and deeply rooted, challenges become temporary inconveniences rather than permanent roadblocks. You don't ask whether the goal is possible, you ask what the next step is. This unwavering commitment transforms your energy, your priorities, and your behavior. Clarity of vision also influences the standard you set for your life. When you see your future clearly, you stop tolerating habits, environments, and relationships that contradict the person you are becoming. You begin to align your daily actions with your long-term purpose. Every choice, no matter how small, becomes a reflection of the vision you refuse to compromise. Clarity simplifies your decisions because anything that doesn't move you forward automatically becomes a distraction. A strong vision expands your capacity to endure discomfort. When your future becomes more real to you than your present challenges, you gain the emotional strength to push through fear, fatigue, and frustration. You are willing to sacrifice comfort today because you've already seen the reward waiting for you tomorrow. This mental resilience is only possible when your vision is vivid enough to pull you forward. Your vision shapes the opportunities you notice. Without a clear direction, valuable chances pass by unnoticed because you're not anchored to a purpose. But when your vision is sharp, your awareness expands. You begin to see connections, resources, and openings that once seemed invisible. You recognize that every experience, good or bad, can be leveraged to move you closer to your desired future. A clear vision also influences the people you attract. When you know where you're headed, you naturally draw individuals who resonate with your journey and repel those who would slow you down. People can sense when you have direction. It creates gravity. It helps you build relationships that add value, offer support, and challenge you to grow. Vision filters your circle and aligns you with those who strengthen your pursuit. Non-negotiable vision protects you from settling. When you know exactly what you want, you stop accepting opportunities that are beneath your potential. You no longer say yes out of fear, convenience, or insecurity. You say yes because it aligns with your purpose and moves you closer to your future. This kind of selective commitment prevents detours and reinforces momentum. Your vision fuels your identity. The clearer and more specific it becomes, the more you begin to embody the version of yourself required to achieve it. You start thinking like that person, speaking like that person, and making decisions like that person. Over time, you grow into the identity that supports the destiny you're pursuing. Your behavior evolves because your vision demands it. Clarity of vision sharpens your focus. You waste less time, energy, and mental space on things that don't matter because you understand what you're building. Distractions lose their appeal. Procrastination loses its power. You become anchored to a purpose larger than your temporary comfort. This kind of focus accelerates your growth, increases your productivity, and amplifies your impact. Ultimately, a clear and non-negotiable vision becomes the internal blueprint that shapes everything you think, choose, and create. It becomes the force that directs your energy, aligns your actions, and pulls you toward the future you've already claimed in your mind. Discipline is the foundation of success because without it, even the greatest dreams remain nothing more than ideas. Talent can open doors, motivation can spark movement, and passion can create excitement, but only discipline can sustain progress long enough to turn potential into reality. Discipline ensures that you show up whether you feel like it or not. And that consistency is what builds the momentum required for meaningful achievement. Discipline transforms your identity because every disciplined action reinforces the belief that you are someone who follows through. When you commit to doing what needs to be done, not just what feels good in the moment, you build trust with yourself. That trust becomes internal power. It becomes confidence. It becomes the quiet strength that influences every area of your life. Discipline changes how you see yourself, and identity always shapes outcomes. Discipline protects your focus. In a world full of distractions, temptation is everywhere. Comfort, entertainment, comparison, and shortcuts all compete for your attention. Without discipline, these distractions pull you away from your goals before you even realize what happened. But with discipline, you filter out noise and maintain clarity on what truly matters. You become intentional with your time, your energy, and your habits, allowing you to move forward without being constantly pulled sideways. Discipline strengthens your resilience. When setbacks happen, people who rely on motivation crumble because their progress was built on emotion. But those who rely on discipline keep going because their commitment is deeper than their feelings. Discipline teaches you to push through frustration, fatigue, and slow progress. It trains you to endure discomfort instead of avoiding it. Over time, this resilience becomes one of your greatest advantages. Discipline elevates your standards. When you are disciplined, you stop accepting the minimum from yourself because you understand that your future is shaped by the quality of your daily actions. You raise the bar on your habits, your environment, and your expectations. You no longer settle for average because discipline teaches you that excellence is a choice, not a coincidence. Every disciplined decision reinforces a higher level of performance. Discipline helps you maximize your potential. Most people never discover what they're truly capable of because they quit too early or work inconsistently. Discipline forces you to stretch beyond your comfort zone, to practice longer, to refine your skills, and D, to keep improving even when progress is slow. It pushes you to explore the limits of your ability and then break through them. With discipline, your potential becomes something you actively create, not something you simply hope for. Discipline creates structure in your life. Structure doesn't restrict you, it frees you. It eliminates the chaos that comes from indecision and creates predictable routines that support your growth. When you know what needs to happen each day, you remove the mental burden of constantly deciding. You operate with clarity instead of confusion. Structure gives you the stability to thrive consistently instead of sporadically. Discipline builds momentum. Every small disciplined action compounds over time, turning into habits, habits turning into mastery, and mastery turning into success. Momentum doesn't happen in a single moment. It happens through repeated commitment. The more disciplined you are, the more you build, and the easier it becomes to sustain progress. Eventually, what once felt difficult becomes natural, and what once required effort becomes effortless. Discipline separates those who dream from those who achieve. Many people have ambition, desire, and vision, but few are willing to do the work required. Discipline is the difference between wishing for success and earning it. It is the quiet force that works behind the scenes, showing up every day without applause or recognition. And while others wait for the right moment, the disciplined person creates their own opportunity. Discipline is the foundation of success because it is the single quality that determines whether your goals remain possibilities or become realities. It is the anchor that holds you steady, the engine that drives your progress, and the structure that supports every victory you will ever experience. Your inner dialogue shapes your reality because the way why you speak to yourself becomes the lens through which you interpret the world. Every thought you repeat creates a narrative, and that narrative influences your belief system, your confidence, and the choices you make. When your self-talk is empowering, you operate with strength. When it is limiting, you operate with hesitation. Your mind listens to every word you say internally, and those words become instructions for how you show up in life. Your inner dialogue acts as the foundation of your identity. If you constantly tell yourself you're not capable, not ready, or not enough, your actions will match that belief. You will walk into opportunities reluctantly. You will shrink in challenging situations, and you will underestimate your potential before you even begin. But when your self-talk reinforces competence and possibility, you begin to see yourself as someone who can grow, learn, and succeed. Everything changes the moment you start speaking to yourself like someone who's capable. Your internal conversations influence the emotional states you live in. The words you think generate the emotions you feel, and those emotions become the atmosphere of your life. Negative self-talk breeds stress, fear, and insecurity, while empowering thoughts create clarity, calmness, and drive. Your emotions respond to your inner script, and your outcomes follow your emotions. When you master the dialogue in your mind, you master the atmosphere in which your decisions are made. Your inner dialogue determines how you interpret setbacks. Challenges become heavier when you speak to yourself with doubt, because every struggle feels like a confirmation of failure. But when your inner voice says that setbacks are part of learning, you handle them with resilience instead of panic. Your internal narrative affects whether you see yourself as someone who is defeated or someone who is developing. The difference lies not in the situation, but in the story you attach to it. Your self-talk directs your expectations. When you speak possibility into your mind, your brain begins scanning your environment for evidence to support that belief. When you repeat negative narratives, your mind finds reasons to validate them. This is why two people can live in the same world yet experience completely different realities. Your mind creates filters based on what you continuously tell it, and those filters shape what you notice, pursue, and believe you deserve. Your inner dialogue influences the risks you are willing to take. If your internal voice constantly warns you about failure, you will avoid uncertainty and stay inside your comfort zone. You will talk yourself out of opportunities because your mind is trained to expect the worst. But when your inner voice encourages progress, you begin stepping into challenges with confidence. You take action not because fear disappears, but because your self-talk has conditioned you to believe you are capable of handling outcomes. Your internal conversations affect the habits you build. When you tell yourself that you lack discipline or consistency, you reinforce patterns that align with that belief. But when you start speaking words that affirm focus and responsibility, your behavior adjusts accordingly. Self-talk is not just mental, it becomes behavioral. The repetition of your internal words creates patterns in your actions, and those patterns become habits that shape your lifestyle. Your inner dialogue also influences your relationships. If you speak to yourself harshly, you often project those same judgments onto others or accept behavior that matches your internal treatment. When your self-talk is nurturing and confident, you set higher standards for how people treat you. The quality of your relationships often mirrors the quality of your inner relationship with yourself. And that internal relationship is built through your daily self-talk. Your inner dialogue impacts your vision of the future. What you repeatedly tell yourself determines whether you imagine a future filled with possibility or limitations. When your internal words paint a picture of growth, you naturally move toward that future. But when your inner dialogue is filled with doubt, you restrict your imagination and reduce your willingness to pursue greater goals. Your mind cannot build a future. It cannot first see, and self-talk determines what that vision looks like. Your inner dialogue shapes your reality because it becomes the voice that guides your actions, defines your beliefs, and influences every decision you make. The world around you is filtered through the story you tell yourself internally, and changing that story is the first step toward changing everything else in your life. Relentless action creates breakthroughs because progress is built through motion, not intention. Every time you take action, no matter how small, you create movement in your life. That movement compounds, grows, and eventually turns into momentum. Breakthroughs don't appear suddenly out of nowhere. They are the result of consistent steps that eventually reach a tipping point. When you move relentlessly, you force growth to happen even when circumstances seem slow or uncertain. Taking relentless action trains your mind to push past hesitation. Most people get stuck in overthinking, waiting for the perfect moment, or seeking the ideal conditions. But breakthroughs rarely come after perfection. They come after persistence. When you choose action over analysis, you break the cycle of doubt and begin shaping your path with intention. Your willingness to act repeatedly becomes the force that overrides fear. Relentless action builds confidence because each completed step proves to you that you are capable of more than you thought. Confidence does not come from belief alone, it comes from execution. The more you act, the more evidence you create that you can handle challenges, adapt when needed, and continue moving forward. Slowly, you begin to trust your ability to figure things out, and that trust becomes a powerful foundation for your future. When you act relentlessly, you outgrow procrastination. Procrastination thrives on inactivity, but it loses its power the moment you begin doing the work. One action leads to another, and each action weakens the grip of avoidance. Breakthroughs appear when action becomes your default response instead of delay. Over time, you replace the habit of waiting with the habit of executing, and that shift alone changes your entire trajectory. Relentless action exposes opportunities that remain hidden from those who remain still. When you move, you encounter people, ideas, solutions, and experiences that you would never find by standing in place. Action expands your awareness and increases your chances of being in the right place at the right time. The more you move, the more life responds, and the more doors begin to open simply because you are in motion. Pushing forward consistently also strengthens your resilience. When you are relentless, setbacks lose their ability to stop you. Challenges may slow you down, but they cannot paralyze you. Each time you push through adversity, you build endurance and increase your capacity to handle pressure. Breakthroughs often come right after the moment when most people quit, and relentless action ensures you never stop right before the miracle happens. Relentless action forces improvement. Even imperfect action teaches you something. You learn what works, what doesn't, and what adjustments you need to make. Every attempt sharpens our skills, deepens your understanding, and moves you closer to mastery. Those who wait for certainty miss the lessons that only experience can provide. Taking action, even when unsure, guarantees growth that thinking alone cannot create. Consistent action also accelerates results because it turns effort into a compounding force. Small steps taken daily become major achievements over time. The person who moves a little every day surpasses the person who moves a lot only once in a while. Breakthroughs are less about intensity and more about consistency, and relentless action ensures that progress never stops building. Acting relentlessly aligns you with your purpose. When you take continuous steps toward your goals, you reinforce your commitment to the future you are building. Your actions send a message to yourself and to the world that you are serious about your growth. This alignment attracts opportunities, resources, and support that you would never receive if you approached your goals casually. Relentless action proves you are ready for the next level. Relentless action creates breakthroughs because it takes your dreams out of your head and transforms them into reality through persistent movement. Every step forward increases clarity, sharpens skill, builds momentum, and brings you closer to the moment when everything shifts in your favor.